big election coming up tomorrow. Rod the Bod. Oh, and also Friday, the Gorsuch vote. And we'll deal with that really quickly, Rodney Boyd, because from Friday to today, the situation involving Claire McCaskill has changed. She's now full on board with the kooks who want to do the filibuster, which is suicide for the Democratic Party, in my opinion. What's yours, buddy? How you doing?
I think you got something there. What I don't understand about the Gorsuch, I'm doing great. What I understand about the Gorsuch is historically you replace a judge with someone from their same ilk, from their same background, and people seem to have lost track of the fact that this replacement is for Justice Scalia, arguably one of the most conservative justices ever. And so I'm struggling with the idea that you would change the rules and filibuster Gorsuch because he is not out of context for the person he's replacing. So I'm struggling with that, but I do think that there's a lot of pressure coming from the left, almost all from the left, to if you're a Democrat, to be a part of the filibuster. What's more interesting is that it seems to be by the end of this week you'll have several more Democrats that will cross over and say publicly they're going to go ahead and vote, at least give the judge a vote. And I believe if he got the votes and you didn't change the rule, he'd be confirmed.
Yeah, well, what's funny is, too, you got Schumer going, you need to find a more mainstream judge. It's like, dude, you couldn't be more mainstream than Gorsuch. I mean, for crying out loud, you look at all of his rulings and all of his dissents and everything else, and they're pretty much equally against, conservatives and liberals. I mean, it's just that you couldn't get more even-handed than this guy.
Yeah, and I think to say that because he didn't answer questions the way they wanted him to means that his judicial record is not clear or you don't know where he's coming from. It just seems a little odd that this would be the line in the sand for a judge replacing Scalia when typically you replace a judge with someone who has the same ideology. I could see if there was another opening and people wanted to go after whoever was replacing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But this one just seems ill thought out to me. But what do I know? I don't get to vote.
Well, Claire McCaskill's really playing with fire here. She joins this circus, and she's dead in the water in 2018. And specifically what's going to happen is she'll be primaried because what will happen here, they do the nuclear option, which I hope that they do. I hope they don't have to, but I hope that they do it if they do filibuster. And that changes the rules. And that changes the rules for the next Supreme Court. People are going, well, I know, but what if a Democrat gets... That's not going to happen for another 4 years at the least, maybe 8. And so you've got a situation where you're going to probably have 3 by that time, or maybe even 4 Supreme Court appointments that are all going to be easily passed because we'll hold on. We'll gain Senate seats. The Republicans will gain Senate seats in 2018. They definitely won't lose them. And specifically if they lose McCaskill's seat, then... yeah, it's going to be easy peasy for.
Jamie, I think your point. I hope they don't. I hope they don't use the nuclear option. I hope they give the judge a vote. And I'll tell you, we're in this boat now because Democrats under Reid changed the rules a few years back when they didn't like the way things were working.
Right.
And another change would be detrimental, I think, further to the Democratic efforts. But this is just not, to me, well thought out. But like I said before, we'll see how it plays out. Tomorrow's a big day in our region, as you teed up earlier on whether or not we actually get a soccer facility. Without a facility, no team. The MLS has made it clear that if they don't get a facility in the downtown area, St. Louis is off the table. And a lot of voters appreciate that, and I think you've talked about this. It's not about whether we should or shouldn't get a soccer team. It's about who pays for it, and I think that's going to be determined tomorrow, at least on the vote in the city. While county voters are going to be asked, Jamie, to whether or not they support an increase in taxes to pay county police officers more money and allow the county police department to actually hire more competitively. So it's a big day in our region tomorrow, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, no doubt. I've talked about Prop P earlier, and Prop P, people are sitting there saying they don't want to vote for it. I'm going to vote for Prop P, and a lot of people are mad at me about that, but my position is that this is the police law enforcement's in a rock and a hard place because they have been orphaned by people who haven't paid attention properly to their budgets, and now suddenly we have to hold a bake sale to pay them. And that's the problem we have now. Maybe in the future we elect people who actually consider law enforcement a priority as opposed to just the lower rung here, and maybe budget accordingly. So
Maybe
that's
I couldn't have said it any better. And I think law enforcement, the pressure that has fallen on law enforcement in the last few years is unprecedented. Police officers didn't ask for it. They're asked to do a lot more in the last 2 years than they were in the last 10. And I think it's something that the voter, hopefully the voters in the county in particular who have to cast this vote, will take into account all that law enforcement has had to adapt to and adjust to, with the extensive overtime, with the extensive crises, with the shadow that's been cast over almost all law enforcement in spite of how hard they work. So hopefully your point was well taken, and hopefully the voters will consider.
well, because I guarantee if it doesn't pass, our government officials will punish law enforcement and will just throw their hands up and go, sorry, can't do it, can't help. And they won't be encouraged or forced to change their budgetary commitments or to redo their budgets like a lot of us have to do when it comes to prioritizing. And so they'll just throw their hands up and throw the law enforcement guys under the bus.
And I think there'll be a quiet celebration in the criminal community because they'll know that the officers will continue to be underfunded and somewhat demoralized from the lack of resources.
Yeah, and again, if you really want to change something for the better in the future, elect people who consider and put their money where their mouth is when it comes to their budgeting and things like that. All right, buddy. Rod DeBot, always good to talk to you. Insider Talk from 12 to 1 on Sundays. Appreciate you as always, and have fun down there in Jefferson City this week, buddy.
Always. It's a blast. Thank you, sir.
All right, at Rodney Boyd is where you're going to find him. Hey, what happens when